Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our March webinar. My name is Megan Lebeda, and I'm a program manager here at Kirkwood Corporate Training. Hosting today's webinar entitled "The Path to Enough for Courageous Leaders." Excuse me, I cannot talk today. Is Brooke Fitzgerald. Brooke loves nature, community, and connection. She shares in life's adventures with her husband and their two boys who reside here in Iowa. As the energy builder and partner at the Restoration Project, she enjoys working with teams and individuals to feel empowered and connected in their development journey. And with that, I want to give as much time to Brooke as possible, but I will say, please make sure to put any questions in the chat that you have, and we will address them all at the end. We'll leave plenty of time for that, so don't hesitate to do that. But Brooke, I'm going to turn it right over to you.
All right, great. Thank you, Megan. Welcome everyone to the webinar on finding our way to enough. This topic is super important, and I'm very passionate about it because of my own journey of my relationship with this word and this concept. And we'll get into that a little bit as we go along here. But typically, I do want to say that this is a half day workshop that I normally do. So this is going to be a tight, quick 50 minutes. I'll refrain from giving us long stretches of reflection question time, but please feel free to take snapshots when we get to the reflection questions, because I want you to really be able to utilize those post today. And like Megan said, at the end, we'll have some space for questions and things like that. I love to have some interaction at the end. So all right, so a little bit about who we are. We are a women-owned coaching and consulting practice here in Cedar Rapids. Who we serve are those who desire to live, lead, and work with purpose, intention, and who are desiring connection to who they are at their best. And one unique thing about us as coaches with the Restoration Project is that we are fellow travelers in the process of life and leadership and in our work. So we always get comments reflected back to us that we're very authentic in our work and our coaching practice because we are walking alongside of our clients. So I enjoy that part of our work. All right. So why this topic? What do we want more of in life? That is the question. It's not everything that will be accomplished. It's not a popularity contest. It's moments when we feel like we are enough, more presence, more clarity, more insights, more truth, and more stillness. This is why we're talking about this topic. It's very relevant. It's talked about consistently in our client work and in our colleague conversations. And it's absolutely being talked about within your organizations, families, communities, and certainly our world. The burning desire, having peace in our potential and balance in our belonging. We're settling with that question and wrestling with, am I doing and being enough? Now, today, I'm known as an investor and partner and energy builder of the Restoration Project. And in May, it will kick off my 7th year that I've been working alongside individuals, teams, and organizations on their leadership and personal journeys to living and leading intentional and meaningful lives. Now, back in early 2020, I was transitioning from a 9-year run in owning a local brick and mortar coffee shop called the Early Bird in downtown Cedar Rapids. And it was during the forced shutdown period of the COVID pandemic that I reconnected with parts of myself who I had ignored for quite some time. And I built connections with parts of myself who I hadn't yet discovered. Those parts of myself that had been suffocated and choked by my ever evolving hair on fire, trying to do hashtag all the things doing list. Those parts of myself that were seeking validation and worth in exhaustive people pleasing efforts out of an internal belief system and pattern that I just wasn't good enough. I poured what I didn't have into keeping something going for others versus exploring peace and alignment within myself, that I was and I am enough. Now, during this time period, coming alongside my business partner, Lindsay, to continue building the restoration project, we came across the top 5 regrets of the dying. Do you want to know what was number one? And ironically, I'll just side note, it consistently is number one since then, the very top of that list. Now, typically, I give folks in the audience time to answer that, reflect on that, shout out, popcorn answer what you think number one consistently is. But I'm going to tell you what it is. I wish I would have lived a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. I'm going to say that again. I wish I would have lived a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Now, when I came across that, I stopped dead in my tracks. I was on a train, one-way ticket to that destination. I'm going to ask you to reflect and see in what ways maybe you too can relate to this. Now, today I'm referring to myself as a proud recovering people pleaser. My personal leadership journey has landed me in learning that worth and enoughness can no longer be defined or found in the doing. It needs to be found internally, in my being. How I show up is more important than what I do. I'm going to say that again. How I show up is more important than what I do. This concept of enough is a decision, not an amount. So, what is enough? When will I do enough? When will I be enough? What is that infamous bar? And perhaps the more important question to that equation is who is setting it for you? I'm going to invite you as a fellow traveler to be open and curious about this topic for you and your journey. This is something that we have to consciously choose for ourselves, and the journey is ongoing. I ask myself frequently in my daily or weekly check-ins, does this align with the life that I want to live? Is this person or is this thing raising my energy or lowering it? Is my ego in charge here or is my soul? And which one am I feeding? Most times, there's nothing to do differently or more of, but it's how we're being that has to shift. And I'm going to take us through the very simple exercise of general mindset, right? The mindset shift here is getting to versus having to. And I love Mel Robbins with her Let Them Theory book has really highlighted and brought this concept to surface. Really great book if you haven't had a chance to read that. But the power of this is it puts that power and control back in your hands when you shift that mindset from have to get to. I'll give you an example. Waking up with, I get the opportunity to serve today. I get the opportunity to serve today and an abundance of another day to live versus, oh, I have to da 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 today, right? There's a difference in the body language and how we feel when it's full, busy, tasks, all the doing in the have to mindset versus the get to, right? Another simple example that I'll use. Last year, we have a son who last year was in 8th grade, middle school, and the school was about 20 some minutes away from our home. And our youngest was in elementary school. So, 2 different schools, 2 different start times. Spent a lot of time in the car, and I wasn't leaving the Cedar Rapids zip code, right? And so, there were so many days where I would have to tell myself and remind myself, Brooke, you get the opportunity to be in the car one on one with your kids right now. It's not, I have to do this. I have to take them here. I have to take them there, right? Because I'm going to wish this time back someday. I have so many of my clients who are empty nesters and they remind me consistently of these little things. But that's just another example, right, of getting to versus having to mindset. So give that some thought. All right, so today I'm going to break this conversation down into three parts. First, talking about rebuilding connection, okay, has to start there. Then we're going to talk about restoring intentions and then giving you some tools and some practices to inspire action. So let's get into step one. Step one is knowing your gifts and leaning into your contributions. Enough of the hustle, the checking off the boxes, the hamster wheel that you potentially are on, burning precious life fuel and going nowhere. But burnout, overwhelmed, resentful, rigid, empty, exhausted, right? List goes on and on. Connecting or reconnecting with yourself in understanding inherently what bar you have set for yourself and who currently has ownership of that bar. I want you to think about the concept of detaching your worth from how much you do and aligning with who you are being in the doing. Okay. Now, there has been a lot of talk about belonging, thanks to the works of Brene Brown and others. And I'm going to take us just a toe dip just to orient ourselves into this concept. Okay. So, belonging is the innate human desire to be a part of something larger than us. Fitting in and belonging are not the same thing. In fact, fitting in is one of those ultimate barriers to belonging. Fitting in is about assessing a situation and becoming who you need to be in order to be accepted. Belonging, on the other hand, doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are. Each of you has a story. Each of you has a unique gift that the person next to you does not have. Your unique is probably one of those gifts that you don't even realize is a gift. You assume maybe everybody has it, right? I am just as guilty of this when I started on my journey of understanding my enoughness, understanding my worth, understanding inherently who I was. That question of what was my unique gift was really difficult for me to answer, but ended up being something that I just assumed everybody had. So think about that for a minute. Let's stop being connected to a Wi Fi connection and connect from within. There is where our peace and potential lies. I'm going to give you a definition of peace to think about, and I'll say it a couple times in case you want to jot it down. My definition of peace is instead of hustling for a life that looks good, let's cultivate a life that feels good. Instead of hustling for a life that looks good, let's cultivate a life that feels good. All right, this is our first section of reflection questions. And as I mentioned at the start, please feel free to take a snapshot of these questions to be able to journal or reflect, discuss with a friend, colleague, mentor, coach, whomever you feel safe with, but outside of this time together. Okay. I usually give a solid 15 to 20 minutes at my workshops to be able to really sink into these questions and share as a group. So obviously we don't have time to do that today, but a couple of reflecting and rebuilding connection questions. Number one is if you set aside the role or title, who are you at your core that brings value to others? Who are you when no one needs anything from you? And the last question is how can you be a better friend to yourself, staying aligned and in tune with your gifts? I'm going to give you just a second to reflect on that for a minute here. And then we'll go into the second section of restoring intention. Okay, restoring intention is step two. Okay, so we've built some connection, we've gotten some groundedness. Now let's go into our intentions. Okay, so I always talk about restoring intentions with rooting us in choosing love over fear. Okay, and I do that because there's only two reticular pathways in the brain, and they are fear and love. Okay, so fear is closed. Love is open. Fear is absolute. Love is curious. Fear loves the ego story. Love loves the soul, reality. We're wired to choose, right? As human beings, this or that, stay or go, feel good or feel bad, right? What if we choose and enough in our life and in our leadership? What would that look like if we chose love from a place of abundance, curiosity, and enoughness versus choosing fear is choosing from a place of lack, judgment, and not enough. We suffer from our stories, not our realities. I want you to consider how much time and energy we are spending on drama. Now, when I talk about drama, I'm referring to gossip, comparison, stress, worries, judgments, guilt, overthinking, complaining, miscellaneous toxicity, right? When I am referring to drama, that's what I'm referring to, that big bucket of stuff. Think for a second how much time and energy that we spend on that per day. I'm not going to get into the research of it, but it's a lot, okay? And this is time and energy that we can't give back. The beauty is we have control over this. One of my good mentors from early on in my journey, Wayne Dyer, he's since passed on now, but if you look up anything with Wayne Dyer, you will find a lot of his research and stuff on this. But his one quote that I relate to on this is, "As you think, so shall you be." I become what I think about. Okay. Our brain is an incredibly powerful tool. Okay. I'm going to give you a small example that will be relatable for you in this. Let's say that on your way to work today, you got to work and I said, "Hey, how many Ford Escapes did you see on the road today on your way to work?" You would look at me like, I have no idea if I saw a Ford Escape or not, right? Most of us are driving unconsciously, right? Just on autopilot. However, if we had this conversation and I said, "Hey, I'm looking to get a new vehicle." And you ask me, "Oh, really? What are you looking for?" I say, "You know what? I'm really looking for a Ford Escape." I leave the office and I go home. How many Ford Escapes do you think I'm going to see on the road? Quite a few, right? Because my brain is searching for that, is fully conscious, a fully conscious thought. So our mind is a very powerful tool, and that's the easiest example that I give to relate to that. All right, my relationship, just a quick personal story here. My relationship with this word, this concept of enough, I actually had my word of the year in 2023 as enough. And so I have a good relationship with the throes of this concept. Um, I've really struggled mightily with a false belief system that I'm not good enough. And the alignment to the following questions has helped me to restore back to the intentions. of who I am and the courage and the confidence of being able to show up as her. So I'm going to walk through just a quick restoring intention tool that has really helped me and I still continue to use daily to reset the bar. It is called the SNAP exercise. Okay. Now, this is a daily way to restore intentionality. This little exercise can take as little as 2 to 3 minutes. Okay. So it's a very simple yet effective way to be able to restore our intentions and our enoughness. Okay. So I'm going to walk through the SNAP process. Step one of SNAP is simply to stop, right? Coming off of autopilot and coming into the present moment. Okay. So bringing yourself to conscious. The second step is to notice. Notice how you're feeling. Notice what is around you. How are you feeling inside of you? What has been going on, right? Just really do that simple connection step with yourself and noticing. The third step is to ask. Ask yourself a series of questions. My go-to questions, and I'll repeat them for you since they're not on the side, but my simple go-to questions are, what am I believing right now? And is that belief really true? Whose approval am I really seeking when I push to do or be more? What is my motivation right now? And where can I choose love over fear in my life right now? So I'm going to repeat those again. First question is, what am I believing right now? And is that belief really true? The second is, whose approval am I really seeking when I push to do or be more? What is my motivation right now? And where can I choose love over fear in my life right now? The last step is to pivot. Okay. You're going to go back into your work and go back into what you were doing. But it's the lesson here is that I encourage you to have the courage to stop looking when you've seen what you need to see and consciously take a loving, open, curious step in moving forward in your enoughness. Okay. All right. Some reflection and reflection questions in restoring intention. Same thing here. If you want to take a little screenshot of these and journal on these afterwards, I would encourage you to do so. And keep coming back to them. A lot of times in my workshops, in reflection time, I'm answering the same questions right alongside everyone in the audience. And I've answered these questions time and time and time and time again. And different things come up at different times and in different seasons. So I encourage you to continue using them over and over. Number one is, what am I holding on to that is no longer serving me in this season of leadership or in life, right? Interject anything you want to there. What does enough mean to you? And how might my organization, team, family, community benefit if I show up with curiosity and self acceptance versus judgment and self doubt? Remember, reorienting back to our fear and love pathways. So I'll give you just a couple of minutes there. Continue to, I see there's several questions and things in the chat, so we'll have good time to answer some of those questions too. Okay, let's move into the final step, step 3. So inspiring action. Here's where this is kind of a robust part of this content, okay? So I'm going to give some common traps that we fall into when it comes to our courageous relationship and leadership with this concept of enough. And I'm going to give you some practices for support. So the path to enough can feel heavy and overwhelming, unattainable and unsustainable. Many of us have the tools maybe to build connections and stay intentional in our enoughness, but we don't make the time and the space a priority to stay consistent in our action. That's a common thing. Some of us don't have the tools, right? And so we stay in that ruminating phase, maybe of worry, lack, fear, and operating from that place of there's just not enough. So I'm going to go through 4 common traps and kind of unpack each of the traps. As I go through these, I want you to just jot down or take note of maybe which one or ones that perhaps align with you. So, trap number 1. Everyone else is happy, successful, reaching their full potential, financially free, have it all figured out, ready to retire, at peace, etc., etc., etc. But me. Comparison is the thief of joy. You are literally giving away your worth to others in this trap. Who holds the bar? Reorient us back to that. Who holds the bar? Who sets your bar? You. This is difficult. I just want to honor in a culture, in a world where algorithms, literally, marketing and self improvement is easy, just take this pill, right? They're literally wired to convince us that we're in a place of lack, that we don't have enough time, money, resources, energy, education, opportunities, right? And so I just want to honor that we do live in a culture where this does make it challenging, but we are evolving beings, okay? We're not hamster wheel doers. Our lives are, despite these algorithms, not checking off boxes and moving up and to the right on that staircase, okay? Our life is a spiral evolution. Know and connect to your values. Know what your value systems are. Know what grounds you. What is that North Star that you can always align to? Okay. Be intentional about what you expose yourself to: media, people, books, podcasts, screens, etc. If you need to, it is healthy to set screen limits for yourself, right? Allow yourself to dream, be creative, connect to nature. I know one of the practices for myself is taking a walk in nature or outside in our neighborhood, and I don't have AirPods in. I'm not listening to a podcast, right? I am not allowing additional noise to be able to infiltrate my brain, okay? I allow myself to actually connect and really be present in that moment. It is really healthy as a practice. Be intentional about your time in the office and consider perhaps 5-minute do nothing meditations. Act on aligning to your best self, the person that you want to be, not whom everyone else wants you to be, right? Or who you've compared yourself to. Going back to that top regret of the dying, okay? I value being hardworking, loving, creative. Did I live that way today or this week? All right, trap number 2, perfectionism. Whoo, this is a big one. It is sneaky too. It shows up and puts us in that not good enough trap. I'm going to make a mistake. I have to have this all figured out. I'm just not a good enough boss, leader, teacher, parent, daughter, friend, brother, right? Insert whatever you want there. I will look incompetent. I will disappoint them or let them down. Perfectionism is really sneaky and it shows up a lot. These are all beliefs. They are not reality. Good enough is good enough. Okay. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Progress means moving forward, learning, evolving, growing. Failure is absolutely a part of this. Mistakes are a part of this. If we don't take a step, we won't ever get anywhere. An example of a client team that I work with, we were really talking about perfectionism and overthinking and overanalyzing, and they're in an industry where mistakes are very costly. And so we were talking about how difficult this is. And an example of a question that they have since enacted is, do I have enough information to move forward here? Do I have enough information to move forward here to help bring us to conscious and take a small step forward? A secondary question for you, if this is a common trap, is what am I afraid of happening? What am I afraid of happening? Bring it to conscious, right? Bring that conscious fear up so that you can address it, right? And come to the reality with it. All right, trap number 3. This is personally one that I have struggled with. 3 and 4 are kind of my doozies here. I'm not there yet. Insert you're there, right? And I'm here to tell you a dirty little secret. We will never be there. So let that go. Ask yourself, can I embrace the process, the journey of becoming without needing to have arrived? Focus on direction, not outcomes here. Define some reflection questions to determine whether you're still flying in the right direction towards your North Star. Consider a word of the year or a theme focus for the year. I think I mentioned, earlier that in 2023, enough was my word of the year. I've done the word of the year since 2019. And it's just a really great way for me to orient myself on my own journey and keeping me on my own path. All right, the last trap number 4, also one that I struggle with, seeking external validation for our enoughness. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. A famous Eleanor Roosevelt quote that I've had on my bathroom mirror early on in my journey. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Validation of your enoughness is an inside job. No one is walking around with your worth in their pocket waiting to give it to you. Okay. And that is a good thing. That is a good thing. It's your power, not anyone else's. Own that. Sometimes we can get so caught up in the trap of looking at what we still don't have, what hasn't happened yet that we maybe hoped for. And it puts us in this place of lack and just not enough. A tool that I want you to try out, if this is common for you, is try out the what I have done list. What I have done list versus the what I have to do list. The what I have done list inspires gratitude and back to that philosophy of get to versus gotta, have to, and should. Focusing on what has happened versus what hasn't yet is a powerful, powerful practice. What is true versus what isn't, right? All right, I'm gonna transition us into inspiring some action out of these traps, these common traps. I'm gonna give you some of my personal story and journey with this. I remember when all of my practices were external. All of my practices were external. Remember, I was a people pleaser, right? So I now am a self-proclaimed recovering people pleaser, but I have a lot of reps in this. I had my worth literally in everyone's pocket. I was people pleasing my way through life and my leadership to earn my enoughness, to validate my worth, my value. And I've since worked at turning that validation inward and cultivating an inner practice. Because remember, it does come from in here, it isn't residing out here. Okay. I want you to think about getting out of your head and into your heart, which is consequently the longest journey you will ever make. But I want you to think about a fish just for a second. By swimming, a fish takes in water and its gill turns that water into air, which by which it breathes and it lives. I want you to think about you. I want you to think about your heart as your gill. If you have an inner practice and you spend your life cultivating it, you won't have to chase your life in order to breathe. I'm going to say that again. If you have an inner practice and you spend your life cultivating it, you won't have to chase your life in order to breathe. Some examples of inner practices, quite a few here. Boundaries, breath work, saying no, something else that I've had a lot of reps in. Affirmations, connecting with nature, I had mentioned earlier. Journaling, meditation, mindset, we've talked about that. Feedback loops, mentorship, or coaching. Now, none of this is new news, right? None of this is new news to any of you, I'm sure. The key is it's more about consistency of a practice versus intensity. Okay. So if there's one of these inner practices on this list that you've not yet tried, pick one. Pick one to try. Start small, 5 minutes a day. Okay. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but oftentimes, I get in coaching sessions and let's just say, um, saying no, as an example, we make this big, huge goal out of it. And right out of the gate, we fail, right? Because it's not into habit, it's not an action that we're used to. And so we have to start small and be consistent with it and then continue adding from there. So if there's a couple on here that you're consistently doing now, I'm going to challenge you to add another into your toolbox. Okay. All right, some reflection questions on inspiring action. Number one, how am I feeling about my life and my leadership right now? How can I remind myself that leadership is about presence, not perfection? What positive impacts have I already made? What inner practice will I adopt and cultivate? So I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes with that and continue to add some questions into the chat. We'll spend the last 10 minutes here or so just having a fireside chat, connection, conversation. I would be interested in hearing what your takeaways are too. What's your takeaway from today? Hopefully, there's one thing that you're walking out with today. I'd be curious to hear what that is too. So, all right, to close us out here, sometimes we wait for someone wiser, stronger, more qualified to show up. and lead the way. But what if the leader you're waiting for is already inside you? We are the ones we've been waiting for. The change that we crave starts with the conversations that we host, the decisions that we make, the actions we dare to take. There's no need to wait for permission or a perfect plan. You are already equipped. You are already called, and you are already enough. I encourage you to think about how you're being more than what it is that you are doing so that you can show up with living a meaningful and intentional life. With that, I want to send just a really quick note of gratitude for holding space and time with me today and for yourself. So, with that, Megan, I'll take questions, conversations, and takeaways.
Fantastic. So now, as Brooke said, it's a great time to add any questions to the chat. We were adding some good takeaways in there to make sure everybody could pay attention to them as we went through. So if you have any questions, please feel free to throw those in. Before you get back to work, I am launching a very quick poll that is very helpful for us as we keep planning ahead, if you wouldn't mind taking that. And I will say that Brooke will be doing a much fuller version of this session in what we're calling season 3 of The Bridge. For those who have participated in that before, we're still currently doing it. So, we're planning next season, and Brooke is a part of that. So please
Yeah.
join us for that. We do have 2 questions so far. How do you figure out your gifts, and how do you disconnect from that drama that you talked about?
Yes. Oh gosh, great questions. Okay, so the first question, how do you figure out your unique gifts? So my journey with that, I have a coach also. The coach has a coach. And on this journey with them uncovering my own, I really, y'all, I had no idea. Like I was like, unique gift? I don't think I have any gifts, you know? And they really challenged me to do 2 things. One, what is constant feedback that you get? What are common compliments that you get? That usually is a small indicator of potentially what your gifts are. Okay. And so that's a really great way to start. The second way to build upon that is to ask. Ask the people that you work closely with. Ask the people that are close friends with you or that have known you for a long time. You know, I'm exploring my unique gift. If you were to say what my unique gift is, what would come up? What's the feedback that you have for me? And really be open to receiving what they say. Um, I always caution a lot of us want to like shrug off, like, oh, I'm just. If you are saying, I'm just, that's also a good indicator. Okay. Be open to receiving what the gift that you may think is small, insignificant, and like I said, that everyone has. That's not true. Okay. That's a story that you're telling yourself. So that's number one. The second question was, how do we close the drama or shut down the drama? Right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that is when I was talking about the SNAP exercise, that is how I close out the drama for myself. The 2 questions are, what am I believing right now? And is that belief really true? Those 2 questions will bring to conscious for you what is really true. It really is just a practice of the conscious thoughts, right? Because there's so much ruminating unconsciously up here that's attached to stories and experiences and perspectives and all of that sort of good thing. So by doing those 2 things, really helped me to condition myself to not go there all the time. Yeah, great question.
Fantastic. Any other questions that we can ask? And of course, if you think of one after this, don't hesitate to email them. We can always get them to Brooke and follow up with you afterwards.
Mm.
Okay. I'm
Any
seeing
takeaways? What's the takeaway? I'd love to hear a
yes.
couple of them. Throw them in the.
hmm There are some nice comments in there, Brooke. Great pacing, slide deck, and message from the Rebecca Solins at the EA.
Oh, yeah. Hey,
Thank you,
Rebecca.
Rebecca. More about consistency of practice versus intensity, also from Rebecca. Thank you. Then we, hi there from Brittany Gerard.
Hi.
Then we also see great presentation and message needs to focus on me. Appreciate it. Great one. Your
Hmm.
initial quote about being true to myself rather than what